Welcome to Rivers in the Wasteland, a podcast for anyone curious about how God is working in real lives today. I'm your host, Amanda Williams, and today I'm going to share with you the heartbeat behind the name of the podcast and how it came to be. Have you ever felt blindsided? You're going along with your normal day, whatever that looks like for you. You're feeding kids, or you're running business meetings, or you're delivering pizzas. All of a sudden you get a text message or a phone call or an email with news that you just didn't expect, and everything stops, and you just have to have a minute or an hour or a day. Everything stops and things just aren't the same anymore. Now, we experienced this about 6 weeks ago. Something happened in our lives that we just did not see coming. Looking back on it, I could see how the Lord prepared us for that moment, but it still was pretty jarring, I would say. And one of the things that helps me when things are pretty crazy, well, our house is kind of crazy all the time because we have 4 kids. They are 7 all the way down to 8 months. So you can imagine the chaos sometimes, but they're so much fun and I wouldn't trade it. I like to keep worship music on pretty much all the time. I love to have something uplifting in the background, even on a normal day. But on a really hard day or hard week, my favorite songs are on repeat. Something that I know can touch my heart deeply and remind me of the promises of God. That's what I want to hear, nothing else. So I'm sitting out on the back patio. My kids are out running around playing. Worship music is blaring. And I'm just sitting there going, God, I need some direction. I need you to tell me something. I need you to show me something because nothing is making sense right now. And it's crazy because even though I was in a moment where nothing was making sense, I still had an immense peace. The word talks about a peace that surpasses all understanding. And that is totally what I experienced during this season. It didn't make it not painful, but the peace helped carry us through, especially for that first week. Now, I opened up my Bible and I opened up my notebook and I just started writing ideas of what I thought the Lord might be telling me. And I was reminded of this idea that I had years ago about starting a podcast. It's funny because a friend and I used to joke about how we wanted to have our own radio show because we used to work together and we thought we were hilarious. We would laugh so hard at ourselves. We just thought we were so entertaining. We thought we would have the best radio show because people could then laugh with us or at us or whatever. But we just thought we were going to be so entertaining. That never went anywhere. But here I am with this podcast because I just always have thought modern day radio show would be so fun. So I mentioned that to Eric years ago, and he is just the most supportive husband because a couple months later on our anniversary, I opened up a gift and he had bought me podcasting equipment. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, that is so sweet. But I had no idea what to do with it. I didn't have an idea of what to talk about. I didn't have an idea how I was going to accomplish it, which is really ironic because back then I only had 2 kids and now I have 4. And for some reason, I think that now is the time. But the podcasting equipment was so great that he bought, and it just sat in the closet for 3 years. It just sat there because I never knew what I wanted to do with it. And it was that day out there that I realized that I just wanted to talk about the Lord. I wanted to talk about the things that he was doing in our lives because the thing that helped us get through this difficult week, the difficult weeks, plural, was remembering the things that he has done in our lives before. And it says in the word, in Revelation, it says, we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And I just thought, that's it. I want to talk about testimonies. I want to talk about what the Lord has done in our lives. So I was making notes and I was thinking, okay, I got my idea. What should I call it? And I started writing down all of these random things. None of them were very good. But then I was led to the book of Isaiah. If you've ever read the book of Isaiah, you know that there are some good passages in there. There are some promises in that book and things that'll make you go, yes, Lord. Yes, that's fun for me. I'm going to claim that. That book is full of that. But Isaiah 43, 18 and 19 is what stopped me in my tracks. So I'm going to read this passage because I don't want to mess it up. The Lord says, but forget all that. It is nothing compared to what I'm going to do for you. For I am about to do something new. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway in the desert. Yes, I will make rivers in the dry wasteland. I was sitting on my back porch with tears streaming down my face and realized that that's exactly what was happening. We were in a wasteland at that moment, and God is like, no. Don't worry. Forget it. Forget everything that I've done. It's nothing. It's nothing compared to what I'm about to do for you. I'm going to do something new. Can you not see it? Like, I just pictured him like, no, Amanda, don't get sad. Don't cry. It's okay, because I'm about to do something that's going to blow your mind. And it's funny because the first part of that verse, it says, but forget all that. What is he talking about there? We have to go back to verse 16. Verse 16, it says that he opened a way through the waters, making a dry path through the sea. What is that story? He is talking about the parting of the Red Sea, which is, the famous story where Moses is leading the Israelites to freedom, and all of a sudden they are up against a sea. He lifts his staff and the sea parts, and the Israelites make it through on the dry land. And then after they are through and to safety, the waters come back together, drowning the Egyptians and allowing the Israelites to move on to freedom. It's one of the most powerful stories in all of Scripture, one of the most glorious displays of God's power. And he's telling us, no, forget all that. That's nothing compared to what I'm going to do for you. I have a really hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that the God that created the sun and the moon and the stars is telling me, Amanda Williams, sitting here in Lenexa, Kansas, that the parting of the Red Sea is nothing compared to what he's about to do for me. And yet, that promise is sitting here in the book of Isaiah. If we look at the imagery of this verse, it says, I will make a pathway in the desert. When I read this part of the verse, I have a picture in my mind right now of like a cartoon going on, a movie of some sort. There's mounds of sand for miles in every direction. It says, I will make a pathway in the desert. So if you picture that, and then you picture yourself just walking along this desert, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm going to die right here because I don't know where to go. I'm really going to run for my life, but I don't know which way to run for my life because I don't know where safety is. And it's funny because that made me think of this year that I went to the Salt River, and my friend Veronica is going to know exactly where I'm going. So when I was pregnant with Jules, so I had Amelia and Isabel. Amelia was probably 5, Isabel was 1, and I was pregnant with my third. It was the middle of summer. I lived in Arizona at the time, so it was probably, 137 degrees outside. And our other friend, Amanda, was coordinating a day at the Salt River. Well, the Salt River is this beautiful place where you can go and dip in the river, and there's wild horses, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I normally go to this one spot where you just get out of the car and you just kind of go do, and you go into the river. This particular day, our friend chose a spot that I was unfamiliar with. Not only did I have my 2 kids in tow and I was super huge and pregnant, I also decided that we were going to bring a wagon with the diaper bag and chairs to set up and toys and snacks, because I always had to have enough snacks to feed a whole island. And I had all the stuff. And Veronica also, I think she had a cooler and chairs. I think I even had a pop-up tent. I don't even know how long we were planning on staying there, but I do know that by the time we got down to the river, we're like, okay, we made it. But it was leaving this spot that reminds me of this moment, because we were so tired from being out there. I think we probably stayed a couple hours, and we were in the river, so it wasn't horrible, but again, 137 degrees out will wear on you. This is where you guys will get to know me. It wasn't actually 137 degrees, but it quite possibly was 118 degrees. And why we ever felt like we should go out in that weather, I don't know. But the river was refreshing that day, so it was okay. But when we went to leave, we were now exhausted from being out in the heat, and we had these 2 wagons full of stuff, and we're going to leave back out to our cars, but there was this trek through the sand. Isabel, she was 1, she was just completely done, so I had to carry her. And then Amelia, she was 5, also done, but I couldn't carry both of them and my wagon. And Veronica was dealing with a similar situation with her 2 sons. I think at one point we looked at each other like we were about to abandon our wagon, keep our kids, and we just needed to get to our cars. And it was just the most exhausting experience. That was when we were literally just in a river. There was water there. We were hydrated. we had sustenance, our cars were not far, and we still were we were still looking at each other like, why do we do this to ourselves? So that's not even anywhere near this picture of us being in the middle of an actual desert with sand all around. And God is saying, I will make a pathway in the desert. So what he's telling us in this moment is that if you can imagine, you're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and then all of a sudden God is like, here you go. And it's almost like a red carpet is rolled out, except it's whatever kind of pathway you want. It could be a red carpet, it could be concrete, whatever you want your pathway to look like. It's a pathway for you in the desert to help give you direction. It's giving you the next step. It's telling you where to go. That's one thing. But even if you were in the middle of the desert and you had a pathway, you have no idea how long you're going to be on this pathway until you get to where you're trying to go. God knows that you're not going to make it to where you need to go unless you have some sort of refreshment. Now, the beauty of the last sentence is that he's not satisfied with just telling us where to go in that hopeless situation. He wants to give you a clear path, and he takes it one step further and assures us that along the way, we're going to have that refreshment. He's going to create a river in the driest wasteland. He will not only show us where to go, but he will give us what we need to survive and make it to the next destination. While I was soaking this concept up on my back patio, I just was remembering all of the times that he has shown up for us. Every time that we were ever in a desert, I remember the pathway that was created and the river that came alongside us. But when you're just dropped in the middle of the desert, you don't know what that pathway is going to look like, and you don't know when the river is going to come, but you can be sure that it will happen because he tells us. He tells us right here in the book of Isaiah, it's a promise. He's telling us what's going to happen. So we can be sure of that because God is faithful and he keeps his promises. After reading that sentence, that he will make rivers in the dry wasteland, I knew that's what it needed to be called, Rivers in the Wasteland. I needed to create a space to share about testimonies of God's faithfulness, where I could share my stories and invite other people to do the same. It's really my heart that this space becomes one that you will come to with expectation and that you'll leave feeling encouraged, knowing that God is active today just like he was back then. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, or if this podcast has been a blessing in your life, please leave a review on your favorite platform. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified of all upcoming episodes. Remember that God is at work today in mighty ways, ready to make rivers in the wasteland. If he can do it for me, I know he can do it for you.